My daughter-in-law had been poisoning me for months, and I only discovered it one December afternoon while I was sitting in my late wife's old armchair, pretending the meds were still working. She thought I'd nodded off when she leaned down and whispered to my son, "After Christmas we'll put him in a nursing home. The bed's already ready." My son hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Look at that old man," she hissed. "The pills are working too well. Once he's declared incompetent, this house $900,000 will be ours." I kept my breathing steady while anger swelled in my chest. She didn't know I'd been dumping that coffee for weeks. She didn't know every word she said was sitting safely on the recorder in my coat pocket. Tomorrow morning I'll drink it all to perform one last time and put a period at the end of her story. If you're still here, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Every comment helps this story reach more hearts, and if it moved you, give it a like so others can find it too. My name is Samuel Carter, 69 years old, living in the suburbs of Minneapolis, in the two-story wood house my wife Marilyn and I built over 40 years of marriage. After she died of lung cancer last February, that house became too big, too quiet, and too lonely. I used to think I was lucky to have Eric, my only son, and my daughter-in-law Vanessa coming by to take care of me. But I was wrong in a way no father should ever have to endure. After the funeral, Vanessa became especially attentive. Every morning she showed up early with hot coffee, tapping softly on the door of my study where I usually wrote notes and read the paper. "Dad, you should eat something, and remember to drink your coffee. The caffeine will help you stay alert," she said in a gentle voice, with a flawless smile. I used to think, this girl is so kind. Marilyn must be smiling somewhere. At first, I felt fine. I still drove to the post office, still played poker with my old buddies at the library every Wednesday. But then, starting in April, something strange happened. Around 10 a.m., I'd feel dizzy, like my head was wrapped in fog. I couldn't focus. I stumbled over words, sometimes even forgot what I meant to do mid-sentence. Vanessa noticed first, or rather, pretended to notice. "Eric, I think Dad's showing signs of cognitive decline. See, he's forgetting dates." I heard that one evening when they thought I was asleep on the sofa. Eric looked at me with genuine worry, and I just stayed quiet, not knowing how to push back. The heavy sleepiness was like a curtain. I couldn't find the words to defend myself. From then on, Vanessa started arranging everything. She went with me to the clinic, telling the doctor about my confusion. In front of everyone, she was the perfect daughter-in-law, caring, considerate, devoted. And me? In the doctor's eyes, I was just a tired, slow old man, muddled by age and grief. Time passed, and I gradually lost control of my own life. By June, Eric came over and set a stack of papers in front of me. "Dad, let Vanessa help manage your finances. You've forgotten to pay a few bills lately." I remember that day clearly. There were 3 opened letters on the table: electric, water, and internet. Oddly, I'd never seen them before. Vanessa stood beside me, a hint of pity in her eyes and a half-smile. "Let me handle it for you, okay? Don't stress." I nodded. I was too tired to argue. From that month on, my pension account $3,200 a month started to evaporate. When I asked, Vanessa simply said, "Meds and living costs are expensive now, Dad. Don't worry, I've got it." But I never saw a single pill bottle or prescription with my name on it. And then, one day, I heard her talking to our neighbor Mrs. Peterson, who often brought over baked goods. "Poor my father-in-law, he's showing early Alzheimer's. Some days he even forgets to turn off the stove. We have to watch him constantly." From that day on, people's looks toward me changed, from sympathy to caution, and gradually, distance. I started to suspect, and that suspicion became certainty one August morning. I accidentally saw a note on the kitchen table with a scribble: "Zolpidem, 5 milligrams morning, mix into coffee." Zolpidem is a sleep med. I knew because Marilyn used it during treatment. I'd never touched the stuff. That day, Vanessa brought out the coffee and smiled. "Careful, Dad. Don't spill it like last time." She didn't know that very last time was when I accidentally spilled the cup, and afterward I was clear for 4 straight hours, my head bright like I'd just stepped out of thick fog. I tried again. The next day, I quietly poured all the coffee down the sink, rinsed the cup, refilled it with water, and pretended to sip. Same result. No drowsiness, no confusion, no forgetfulness. For the first time in months, I finished an entire article without stopping halfway because I lost the previous line. I trembled, not from fear, but from anger. If I was right, Vanessa wasn't just wrecking my health. She was destroying my dignity, turning me into a puppet to take everything. That night, I went online to look up small recorders. The next morning, I went to Best Buy, bought a pocket-sized recorder, and hid it in an old sweater. From that day on, I stopped drinking real coffee. I only pretended to drink and listened. Every morning, Vanessa still walked in with that cup of coffee and that gentle smile. "Drink up, Dad, warm your stomach, it's cold out." I smiled back, set the cup down, and let the tiny red light on the recorder start blinking. In the days that followed, I played back each clip. "Eric, don't you see? Dad's getting worse every day. Dad even forgot his own name when signing paperwork. We should get him to Maple Grove before it gets worse." Each line was a cold knife slicing into my heart. And when I heard, "Once he's declared incompetent, this house will be ours," I understood Vanessa no longer saw me as a person. I was just a number on her asset sheet. From that moment on, I was no longer the victim. I was the one writing the ending. I began gathering evidence: bank statements, documents Vanessa signed on my behalf, phone calls she whispered in the kitchen to someone. I secretly recorded the rattle of pill bottles in her purse, and every night before bed I reviewed all the audio files, naming each one by date. Every morning, as winter light slipped through the blinds, I sat in Marilyn's armchair, closed my eyes, and imagined she was still there, resting her hand on my shoulder, softly saying, "Sam, don't let anyone take your dignity. Not ever." Those words kept me clear through the end of the year. Vanessa didn't know that while she was busy weaving a delicate trap to ship me off to a nursing home, I was readying a different trap, silent, flawless, and legal. I would let her believe she'd won, until she admitted her crimes in her own voice. And the day was set. Christmas, the day families gather, would be the day the truth came out. I didn't know who would hurt more, her or my son, when he realized the woman he loved had been poisoning his father. But I knew one thing for sure: I would not die in silence. Not in the house Marilyn and I spent our lives building. Not by the hand of someone wearing a mask of filial devotion. This Christmas, Vanessa would receive the biggest gift a traitor can get: the truth. And I, Samuel Carter, would be the one to hand it to her. It didn't take long for Vanessa to start rewriting my image, not on paper, but in people's eyes. One early fall morning, I heard our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, call over the wooden fence, "How's Mr. Carter doing these days, Vanessa? I don't see him out much." "Oh, it's so sad," Vanessa answered, voice soft like sharing a private sorrow. "The doctor says it's early Alzheimer's. Lately he mixes up days and says things that aren't real. We're just trying to keep him safe." I stood inside, peeking through the curtain. Mrs. Peterson nodded with deep sympathy and said, "I know that illness is cruel. You're amazing. Caring for someone like that isn't easy." Vanessa smiled, bowing her head modestly. And me, the man labeled delusional, could only grip the chair arm and watch them pity me. In less than a week, Vanessa started cutting back my activities. "Dad, maybe take a break from poker," she said when she saw me pull out my old deck. "You get mixed up sometimes. If you accidentally grab a friend's money, that'll be awkward." Then the library, where I'd been in a book club for 10 years. "It's noisy there, Dad. Bright lights aren't good for someone on meds. Read at home, it's quieter." I nodded just to keep the peace, but every time I headed for the door, Vanessa's eyes followed, watchful, controlling, like I was a child who needed a guardian. I began to understand. She didn't just want to poison my body, she was poisoning my reputation, my image in the world. Dr. Lang, who had treated me when I was still healthy, now became Vanessa's strong ally. At each checkup, she sat beside me, holding my hand like I was about to fall. "Doctor, he forgets a lot," Vanessa said, voice quivering. One day he left the gas on all morning, then wandered into the yard in his pajamas. "I'm scared." Dr. Lang nodded, scrawling into my file. Confusion episodes, memory lapses, unsafe behavior. I looked at his handwriting, tried to object. "That's not true. I can still drive just fine, and I remember clearly." He gave a polite smile, voice gentle but cold. "Don't worry, Mr. Carter, things will be all right." And I knew every one of those words, each fake episode, was becoming legal evidence against me. Eric, my son, still visited but spoke less. Each time he looked at me, his eyes mixed pity and doubt. "Dad," he said once, "Mom's gone. I know you're hurting. But maybe you should rest. Don't push yourself. Vanessa's only trying to help." I said nothing. I was too tired to argue. And maybe to him I really had become a cranky, confused old man. Strange envelopes began appearing on the kitchen table, utility bills for electric, water, gas. I didn't recognize the company names, and the addresses weren't even mine. But Vanessa said confidently, "You forgot to pay. They sent warnings. Good thing I checked." She opened my wallet and pulled out my checkbook. "Let me handle it for you, okay?" Her voice was too sweet to refuse, and I was too tired to fight. From then on, I hardly touched my own finances. Month after month, my $3,200 in pension vanished into medical costs I never saw. When I asked, Vanessa smiled. "Your meds are expensive, and insurance only covers part of it. Don't worry, I'm keeping a ledger." But I never once saw that ledger. One afternoon, I heard Vanessa on the phone, half annoyed, half smug. "Yes, I still have control. He's hardly lucid anymore. Dr. Lang has clearly noted intermittent memory loss. Now it's just waiting for the next results." I clenched my fists. Every cell in me wanted to scream, but reason kept me quiet. I knew when facing a liar, anger only makes you lose faster. She did everything systematically. Every morning, coffee at 10 a.m., fog at 12 p.m. I'd pass out in the chair. Then midday, she'd call a neighbor or a cousin in another city, speaking loudly enough for me to hear. "I don't know what to do with Dad anymore. He talked to the wall all morning. I think it's getting worse." All the evidence lined up perfectly with when I drank coffee. A flawless play, and I was the reluctant actor in the role of the senile old man. I was being completely isolated. Old friends stopped coming. The library sent a message. "We hope you feel better soon." Mrs. Peterson, who once asked me to fix her faucet, now only nodded from afar and shut her gate quicker than usual. I heard people call me the forgetful old man. Worse, I saw pity in their eyes, a look no man wants to receive while still in his right mind. The feeling of having your life stripped away piece by piece is horrifying. Not just the money, but your capability, your voice, your dignity. Each day, I felt myself disappearing in my own house. Papers moved around. Marilyn's photo frame stored away. The chair she used to sit in, now a place for Vanessa's tote. I became a tenant in the house of my own memories. Every night, I sat alone in my study, the warm desk lamp glowing over our old wedding photo. I looked into Marilyn's eyes in the picture and tried to imagine her voice. "Sam, don't let anyone turn you into a shadow of yourself." I swore to her I wouldn't let that happen. I started writing everything down every day, every hour. When Vanessa arrived, what she said, who called her, the faint smell of meds in the coffee. Each line was a thread tying me to reality, reminding me I was still lucid, that what was happening wasn't a hallucination. The anger in me no longer boiled. It sharpened into something cold and keen, like a well-honed blade. If Vanessa was crafting a story to destroy me, I would rewrite that story with truth, evidence, and the patience of a man who taught literature for 30 years. I trained myself to stay silent at every provocation. When she said, "You're getting confused, Dad," I just smiled. When she warned, "Don't go out alone. What if you get lost?" I simply nodded. I let her believe the plan was cruising along, that I really was fading away. But in my head, the pieces were locking into place. I knew exactly who I was up against and how. And I also knew that to win your life back, sometimes you have to play the victim a little longer until the predator steps confidently into the trap. I wasn't afraid anymore. I didn't feel ashamed when someone called me forgetful. I felt a strange calm, the calm of someone who already knows the traitor's ending. Vanessa could control everything: money, paperwork, public opinion, even the doctor. But she forgot one thing. A man who has loved, lost, and taught others to recognize lies isn't so easily erased. I knew, soon enough, she would destroy herself. And when that moment came, I would be there clear-eyed, quiet, and ready to say the words Marilyn would have been proud to hear. "I'm still here, and I was never out of my mind." It all began with a small accident. One October morning, I spilled coffee on the hardwood floor. A dark brown stain spread, the bitter smell rising sharp. I crouched to wipe it, thinking it was nothing. But the rest of that day, my head wasn't foggy, and the sudden sleepy spells didn't hit like usual. I read a long economics article without stopping. I even remembered every number, every name startlingly clear. I stood at the window, watching dry leaves tremble in the fall wind, wondering, could it be? The coffee was what had kept me groggy all this time. The next morning, I tested it. When Vanessa brought the cup, I smiled. "Thank you." She set it down, sweet as ever. I waited for her to leave the kitchen, then quietly poured it down the sink, rinsed the cup, filled it with water, leaving the same level and warmth. I pretended to sip, making a face like I was savoring the familiar bitterness. At 10 a.m., I was still alert. At 12 p.m., I finished the chapter I'd been stuck on. That afternoon, I drove to the park, walked around the lake without losing my bearings, without that woozy haze. Everything was so clear it gave me chills. I started a log, a small leather-bound notebook Marilyn once used for grocery lists. I split the page in two. Date on the left, my condition on the right. Day 10, drank coffee drowsy, slow speech, headache. Day 11, dumped coffee alert, wrote 2 pages of journal. Day 12, dumped coffee, good memory, no fatigue. Day 13, tried drinking, drowsiness returned. Each line was like a needle stitching together the pieces of a horrific truth. I was being poisoned. Not a lethal dose, a dose to make me confused, weaker by the day, until I couldn't fight back. A sleep med, or a strong sedative. Low dose, long term. Every morning, 1 sip. I remembered that Zolpidem note I'd seen on the table. The name jabbed my mind. If that was what she was mixing into my coffee, the whole picture was clear. Slow poisoning, pretend caregiving, fake medical records, then legal guardianship. Subtle and cruel. I knew suspicion wasn't enough. I needed evidence. The next day, I bought 5 small glass jars at a convenience store, screw-top lids. I cleaned them, labeled each with a white sticker. Day 14, Day 15, Day 16. Every morning when Vanessa brought the coffee, I quietly poured some into a jar, tightened the lid, and hid it in the cabinet under the desk. After a few days, I noticed something odd. At the bottom of the cup there was always a fine, milky white residue that didn't fully dissolve, even with thorough stirring. When I touched it with a fingertip, A harsh, dry bitterness clung to my tongue, not like regular coffee. It was a cold, lifeless kind of bitter. I stored each jar carefully, hiding them under old files in a drawer. These were my first samples in the plan I called in my head Reclaim. But I knew I couldn't fight alone. I needed an outsider with expertise, someone credible in court. It couldn't be Dr. Lang, he was in Vanessa's pocket. I needed someone uninvolved, reputable, who knew me before this began. I remembered Marilyn's circle of colleagues. Among them was a physician named Priya Patel, an oncologist who cared for Marilyn through treatment. She knew me, knew Marilyn, and most importantly, knew I wasn't a confused man. I found her old business card in a drawer. The paper was yellowed. Street Paul Medical Center, faded with time. I held it for hours, weighing the risk. Calling her meant leaving the house and risking Vanessa finding out. But if I didn't, I'd never have a chance to prove anything. The next morning, Vanessa came out with coffee like always. "Drink it right away, okay? It's bitter when it cools." I smiled and took it, but the moment she stepped out, I poured it into the 6th jar and twisted the lid tight. I slipped it into my coat pocket along with my notebook, then grabbed my car keys like I was heading to the post office. "Where are you going, Dad?" "Just dropping off some mail. I'll be right back." "Let me go for you." "No need," I cut in, firmer than usual. "It's only a few minutes." I drove slowly, my palms slick with sweat, my heart pounding like a drum. When I stopped in front of Dr. Patel's clinic, I sat in the car for a few more minutes, trying to catch my breath. I told myself, "Stay calm, Sam. This is the first step on the way back." Dr. Patel stepped into the hallway to meet me, still small in stature, her eyes bright and warm as ever. "Oh, Mr. Carter, I heard about Marilyn. I'm so sorry." "I know, doctor. Thank you." I tried to smile, but my throat tightened. "But today, I'm here for something else." I told her everything from the cup of coffee and the long waves of drowsiness to the Zolpidem note and the liquid samples I'd saved. Dr. Patel listened without blinking, her brows knit. "That's strange. The symptoms you're describing are very consistent with a sleep medication. And if it really is Zolpidem, it can cause confusion, short-term memory loss, even hallucinations. I need you to help me with a blood test and, if possible, a cognitive exam. I want documentation proving I'm completely lucid." She nodded, eyes steady. "All right, but you must be careful. If someone is really trying to poison you, they won't stop. I'll draw blood today and send it to a private lab. No one but me will know." When the needle touched my arm, I watched the bright red blood flow into the vial. For the first time in months, I felt lighter. What flowed out of me wasn't just blood, it was the fear and the silence that had bound me for so long. After the draw, Dr. Patel handed me a cognitive test. Questions, number strings, shapes, simple problems. I finished quickly, without a single mistake. She smiled. "Mr. Carter, these results are excellent. If anyone says you have cognitive decline, they're lying. So, if there's medication in my blood, we'll know in a few days. And if there is, I'll sign off and keep an independent copy for you." I nodded, feeling like I finally had a true ally in this solitary fight. On the way home, the cold wind slapped my face, but I felt lighter than ever. In my head, two parallel paths began to form, one medical, to prove the truth with tests, and one legal, to make her undo herself with her own words. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Day 18, saw Dr. Patel. Blood drawn, cognitive test done." Starting the 2-track plan, I put the journal in the drawer next to the 6 coffee jars. The recorder's red light sat quietly on the desk, waiting for morning when Vanessa would walk in again, with that gentle smile and a steaming cup in her hand. She didn't know that from now on, every drop of coffee she made would be evidence against her. After meeting Dr. Patel, I drove home through the season's first thin snow. The sky was silver gray, the air so cold my breath turned to smoke. Inside me was something different, clarity, purpose, like I was following a thin thread to find the way out of a maze. I knew that if I only had words, I'd still lose. I needed images. The next day, I went to the electronics store at the mall and picked a tiny black Wi-Fi camera, only slightly bigger than a coin. The salesperson said, 4K resolution, 4 hours of battery can connect to your phone. I nodded. Good, the more discreet the better. That evening, I pretended to go to bed early. When I heard Vanessa's footsteps leave the first floor, I turned on the dim kitchen light and took out the camera. I taped it behind the bread box with clear tape, aimed the lens straight at the coffee maker and the counter where she usually set the pill bottle. The light from the window made the frame look natural, nothing suspicious. I checked on my phone. The frame was clear and sharp, enough to catch even small movements. The next morning, at 8:45 a.m., Vanessa walked into the kitchen. I peeked through the crack in the door, my heart pounding. She pulled a white bottle from her purse, poured out a pill, crushed it with a spoon, then stirred it into the cup of coffee exactly as I'd predicted. Her movements were smooth, decisive, her face expressionless, like she'd done it 100 times. When she set the cup on the tray and carried it to the living room, the camera kept recording. The clink of the spoon on the ceramic rang out clearly. I wrote in the journal, 8:46 a.m. crush, 8:48 a.m. stir, 8:49 a.m. carry out. Every day, I repeated the process. Steady, quiet. After 5 mornings, I had 5 videos, each over 3 minutes long. Same camera angle, same actions, same kind of bottle. No extra words needed, the footage told its own story. On the 6th night, I put all the clips into one folder, set a password, and backed them up to 2 USB drives. I hid one in Marilyn's old pill box, the other in the coat closet drawer in the garage. The next day, I called Dr. Patel again. Doctor, I think we need more testing, something more comprehensive. Her voice was warm but cautious. Mr. Carter, are you talking about a specific toxicology? Yes, I want a full panel. And, if possible, another cognitive test. I need both results on the same day. She was silent for a few seconds, then agreed. Come to my satellite clinic at the end of the day. It's quieter there, safer. I arrived on time. A small room, soft, warm lighting, the familiar smell of antiseptic. Dr. Patel greeted me with a nod. You all right, Sam? Not yet, but I'm getting there. I smiled lightly, my hands still shaking with tension. She drew 3 vials of blood, labeled them carefully, then moved to the cognitive part. She set a series of tasks in front of me. Recall strings of numbers, copy patterns, recognize words, connect logic. I finished all of them, not a single error. When we were done, she looked at me, eyes reflecting both gravity and respect. Mr. Carter, she said, your scores are in the 95th percentile for your age. I see no signs of cognitive decline. I only nodded, my throat tight. After months of being treated like I was losing my mind, that one sentence made me feel like I could breathe again. 2 days later, Dr. Patel called. Her voice was low, as if to keep things discreet. The results are in, Sam. Your blood shows 2.1 milligrams of zolpidem, a strong sedative. That amount isn't enough to cause acute poisoning, but it's enough to make someone groggy, impair short-term memory, and slow reaction time. Are you certain you've never been prescribed this? I've never taken it, I said. Then it's very clear. Her voice turned firm. This is prolonged drug exposure, not medical treatment. I'll prepare a formal report. If anything unusual happens, you need someone to hold the original for you. I met her the next day. We printed 2 copies of the results. I signed one. She stamped and sealed it, and sent it to the hospital archive. I put the other in a sealed envelope addressed to Renee Collins, attorney at law. Before I left, Doctor. Patel looked at me, voice serious but sincere. Sam, be careful. If she realizes, she might escalate. I'll keep a copy in my private file in case you're taken away suddenly. If that happens, I'll notify the police myself. I squeezed her hand, choked up. Thank you, Priya. You just saved me a second time. That evening, back home, I sat in my study, looking at the certificates and the USB drives on the desk. A complete file was taking shape. Video, journal, blood work, cognitive tests, and a statement from an independent physician. I knew each piece was a weapon. But to bring Vanessa down, I needed someone who understood the law. I opened my contacts and dialed Renee Collins, an old acquaintance of Eric's, now a civil attorney specializing in elder abuse. Renee here. This is Samuel Carter. Sam? It's been a long time. What's going on? Something big. I need you to hold a confidential dossier. If I disappear in the next few weeks or get taken to a facility, open it and hand it to the police. Her voice turned serious instantly. Are you in danger? Not directly. But they think I'm incompetent, and there's an upcoming appointment with Dr. Lang, the one who wrote that I'm no longer able to care for myself. I want to go, so she believes she's winning. Sam, what are you planning? I'll act, I said slowly. I'll let them think the meds are still working, but this time I'll have a camera, a recorder, and all the medical evidence in hand. Renee sighed over the phone. Still stubborn, like when you taught literature. All right, I'll take the file. If anything looks off, I'll call the police right away. I nodded and dropped the envelope in the night mailbox. When I came back, I looked around the house. Every photo, every one of Marilyn's things, all bearing silent witness. I touched her framed picture on my desk and said softly, "You always said the truth finds its way. I'll let it walk out on its own, at the right time, in the right place." And I'd already picked that place, next week's appointment with Dr. Lang, the one Vanessa believed would be the final step to ship me to a nursing home. She didn't know it would be the biggest performance of my life. I've always believed that when bad people think they're about to win, that's when they talk the most. And Vanessa, high on the thrill of believing she controlled me, started dropping nuggets more valuable than gold. One morning in early December, I heard her on the phone in the kitchen, voice lowered but full of confidence. The recorder in my pocket was still running. "Yes, I've already talked to Dr. Lang," she said. "He agreed to re-sign the capacity report. I've scheduled 2 more doctors. We need all 3 signatures for the court to approve the power of attorney. We can't mess up a single step." She paused, then continued, smug. "Don't worry, I already briefed them. I told them all about his symptoms. They just need to confirm. I'll schedule the neurologist for next week to get the last sheet." I stood still in the living room, my heart pounding. Everything she said, 3 signatures, power of attorney, court approval, was the key to the whole scheme. With those papers, she could sign anything for me. Sell the house, withdraw money, even transfer everything into someone else's name. A legal noose, tightening around my neck one notch at a time. That evening, when Vanessa went to a book reading, really her usual time to make phone calls, I started rifling through the drawers in her office. I'm not proud of it, but when you're turned into a victim in your own home, ethics take a back seat to survival. I opened her leather bag, flipped through the documents, and my heart clenched. In the middle was a stack of nearly completed forms. The very first line read, "Power of Attorney James Samuel Carter." My name, in her handwriting. The agent line was already signed, Vanessa Carter. Below was a copy file from Maple Grove Memory Care with an admission date, January 3rd. I pulled out more papers, a description of rapidly progressing Alzheimer's, a timeline slashed with red ink. At the top, in blue, she'd written, December 1 to 15, collect 3 doctor signatures, December 16 to 25. Keep things normal. Don't let him suspect December 26 to 31. File with the court January 3rd. Transfer to Maple Grove. January 15th. Finalize power of attorney February 1st. Sell house. Close. I held the page, staring at the last line. Florida, new beginning. Right next to it was a deposit contract for a condo in Sarasota, Florida, $20,000. In small print, source of funds, from James Carter's pension account. I exhaled. The anger no longer flared, it hardened, cold and sharp as steel. Everything was clear now, not just a plan to remove me, but a plan to seize my entire life, wrapped in legal paperwork. I photographed every page and put them back carefully. Then I started a list of people who'd heard about my condition. Neighbor Mrs. Peterson, the delivery guy, the mail carrier, even the librarian at the community center, the people Vanessa had deliberately fed the image of me as a muddled old man. When it came time for court, I'd need their statements, proof that the Mr. Carter is losing his mind story was her product. Over the next few days, I kept recording Vanessa's short calls. She sounded increasingly bold, bragging to someone, "No, I'm not worried. Once the papers are done, the court will thank me for taking care of him. Everything is legal. And that house, almost $1 million. In a year, Eric and I will be in Florida with a fresh start." Each time I replayed it, a chill ran down my spine. Legal, that was her keyword, as if morality could be erased by a court stamp. The scariest thing wasn't the drug in the coffee, it was her faith that the law could wrap evil in an official seal. What do you think makes a person convince themselves that doing wrong is right? Share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes your answer can wake up someone who's headed the wrong way. I needed to prove that this legal was built on lies. I reopened the credit card statements. In every window of my fog, there were Vanessa's charges: spa, fashion boutiques, pricey restaurants, all matching the days I drank coffee. I printed them and marked each item in red. At the top, I wrote, "Every time I lose my mind, a sum of money disappears." I compiled everything into a thick folder and labeled it Dossier No. 2. Inside, copies of the hidden camera videos in the kitchen, audio clips of her talking about power of attorney and the plan to sell the house, coffee samples in glass jars, labeled by day, copies of Dr. Patel's blood work and cognitive tests, spending statements matched with my fog day journal. Each piece was part of a wide-angle picture, one that, once assembled, left Vanessa no room to deny. Night fell, and I sat at the desk under the warm yellow lamp, papers glowing. I felt like I was writing my last novel, only this time there were no fictional characters. On the last page of my journal, I added a brief line: "Time to drink for real." I knew that to expose Dr. Lang and the whole staged medical narrative, I had to play the patient one more time. This time, I'd actually take the drug, let them believe I was declining exactly as planned. And in that confusion, the recorder would capture every lie. The feeling was both chilling and strange, like walking into a match where the opponent thinks you're blind, while you're quietly opening your eyes. I closed the journal and turned off the light, leaving only the soft glow from Marilyn's frame. She smiled gently in the photo, as if telling me to stay calm. I whispered, almost a prayer, "I'll do my part, honey. Then everything will go back where it belongs." I knew the day I drank that coffee again would be the start of the final act, where Vanessa believed she was winning, and I was waiting to drop the curtain. That morning, the Minnesota sky was bitterly cold and still. I sat by the window, watching a thin mist settle over the bare trees, a steaming cup in front of me. The familiar poison hid inside, looking harmless as ever. I knew that taste well, harshly bitter with a metallic edge, but today I didn't pour it out. I clenched my fist, looked at Marilyn's photo on the shelf, and murmured, "This time I'll drink it all, and you'll see it end." I drank in slow sips, letting that bitter taste run down my throat and cling to my tongue. In my head, I repeated my own reminder. Stay steady. 15 to 20 minutes, don't collapse. I needed just enough time to get to the clinic and complete the performance that Vanessa and Dr. Lang had carefully staged, except they didn't know I was the lead in this show. Vanessa drove. She picked soft music and glanced over at me now and then with a fake pitying look. Please cooperate today, Dad, she said. Dr. Lang just wants to help. I nodded, lips trembling slightly, not from the drug, but from holding back the fury boiling in my blood. The clinic was on the third floor of an old brick building, smelling of antiseptic and instant coffee. The walls were plastered with posters about Alzheimer's and cognitive decline in seniors. Vanessa helped me into a chair, all patience. His confusion episodes are getting more frequent, she said as soon as Dr. Lang walked in. Last week he nearly set the kitchen on fire. Last night he said someone was poisoning him. Dr. Lang, a salt and pepper middle-aged man, nodded as if everything had already been decided. He didn't look at me, he just scribbled. Mr. Carter, he said evenly, do you know what day it is today? I looked out the window, let my eyes glaze and rasped. I think it's Monday? Friday, Vanessa jumped in, as if reciting lines. He mixes it up a lot. I lowered my head and repeated, Monday, right? Then went quiet. I watched him jot a quick line, lips pressed like a man confirming the obvious. Vanessa kept going. He has delusions about being watched. He even says I'm putting meds in his food. I'm exhausted, doctor. The whole family's worried. I tilted my head, echoed. The whole family is worried. Like a dazed man. A perfect little play, every beat and breath hitting their marks. The only difference this time was that I was recording the entire show from my sweater pocket. The tiny recorder clipped inside captured everything. The rustle of paper, Vanessa's fake choking voice, even Dr. Lang's sigh as he wrote possible dementia. For about 20 minutes, I intentionally stalled mid-sentence, asked off-topic questions, repeated Marilyn's name, everything to make him believe the drug was working. I asked, Marilyn, did she tell you about the new bed yet? Dr. Lang looked up, confused for a moment, then bent back down. Yes, I understand. Interwoven memories are common. Vanessa pressed her lips together and nodded. See, I told you. When the exam ended, Dr. Lang signed the form and stamped the top right corner. Vanessa took it, her eyes lighting up for a split second like someone who just won the final hand. Thank you, doctor. We'll follow your guidance. I kept the dazed look until we left the building, walking slowly, hands shaking naturally. Only when the car door shut did I take a deep breath, like a swimmer breaking the surface. Back home, I went straight to my study. Every step felt heavy, my head still swimming from the drug, but my mind was sharper than ever. I plugged the recorder into the computer and exported everything. Vanessa's voice rang out clearly through the speakers. He has delusions about being poisoned, says I'm plotting to take the house. We only want what's best for him. I paused the clip and closed my eyes. Good for me, I whispered. Or good for your bank account. I backed up the audio file in 3 places, one on my hard drive, one sent immediately to Attorney Renee via secure mail, and one copied to a small USB drive, hidden in Marilyn's pillbox alongside the video evidence. That night, as the drug began to wear off, I sat in front of the screen and replayed all 18 videos from the hidden kitchen camera. Each clip was a morning, same angle, the same hands carefully crushing pills and stirring them into my coffee. The 4K image caught every white grain settling at the bottom of the cup. Undeniable. I sorted the files by date and renamed each clip. Nov 10, Crush, Nov 11, Stir, Nov 12, Serve. Staring at the long row of data, I let out a quiet laugh. The feeling was part bitter, part victorious, rising in my throat. I copied everything onto a separate USB, labeled it Evidence, Do not open unless I disappear. Then I wrote a short note, my handwriting shaky but firm. If I disappear or get taken to a facility, please deliver this USB to the Minneapolis Chief of Police. Recipient, Nancy Owens, Marilyn's close friend, now the clerk of court for Hennepin County. I knew that if things spun out of control, Nancy would know exactly what to do. I packed the USB and the note in an envelope and mailed it the next morning. It felt like entrusting my life itself. That evening, I sat in the living room, listening to Vanessa on the phone. Her voice sounded relieved, almost gleeful. Yes, everything's moving along. Dr. Lang signed. Just 2 more doctors. I'll file before Christmas. After that, some downtime in Florida. I faked a yawn, stepped onto the stairs with my eyes half closed. Vanessa, who are you calling? It's nothing, Dad. Turn in early, okay? Sure. I gave a weak smile. Maybe I'll sleep a little more tomorrow. Yes, you should. She turned away, thinking the drug had me woozy. But I just touched my coat pocket, where the recorder was still running, its tiny red light blinking. I knew the game wasn't over. But now, I had all the cards. I just needed her to stay overconfident a little longer. I'd keep playing the confused old man they wanted to see, until the day I lit up the room with the truth. And when that day came, Vanessa would have no way out. 3 days after the exam with Dr. Lang, when the drug had fully cleared my system, I met with Detective Lauren Pike at the Minneapolis Police Department. Renee Collins, my attorney, had recommended her. Her office was simple and tidy, white light falling across thick stacks of files and a steaming coffee mug. Lauren was in her 40s, slight build, sharp eyes. When I set the document bag on her desk, she looked at me skeptically until I said, "This isn't about my memory, Detective. This is organized crime." I opened the bag and laid out the evidence, one piece at a time. Video. 18 consecutive mornings of Vanessa crushing pills and stirring them into my coffee. Dr. Patel's blood test results showing zolpidem levels in my blood. Audio recordings of conversations with Dr. Lang and Vanessa's indirect admissions. The handwritten timeline of her plan to file with the court and sell the house. Financial statements showing money flowing out of my retirement account. Lauren turned each page, frowning now and then. When she watched the clip of Vanessa pulling out the pill bottle, crushing with a spoon, and stirring thoroughly, she leaned toward the screen and said slowly, "Mr. Carter, I've seen hundreds of elder abuse cases, but this is one of the most complete files I've ever seen. You don't just have a story, you have medical, financial, and visual evidence. With a judge's order, we can arrest her now." I met her eyes, voice calm but firm. "No, not yet." Lauren looked up. "What do you mean?" "I want her to say everything in front of the whole family so Eric, my son, hears it from his wife's own mouth. I want them to see it. This Christmas, she'll expose herself." Lauren considered it. "A sting?" "I just need one signal," I said. "One text. When I send it from my phone, have your team come in. She won't be able to deny a thing." After a few seconds of silence, she nodded. "All right, I'll stage a patrol car near the block. When you text 'open the gift,' we come in." Leaving the station, I felt 10 years younger. Snow blanketed the streets. My car crawled past rows of lights. In my head, the plan was as clear as the rungs of a stage ladder. Back home, I immediately changed the safe code, the one Vanessa had helped me with before. She wouldn't know that inside, along with birth certificates and insurance policies, I'd added duplicate legal files with attorney Renee Collins. I also signed an emergency power of attorney in Renee's favor, in case I was detained or taken for treatment. The next night, Renee called me on a secure line. "Sam, I set up the shell company. It's called Redwood Properties. We'll pose as a real estate buyer for your house to monitor every step of Vanessa's transactions." I smiled into the phone. "She'll think she's won." 3 days later, Vanessa brought home a thick stack of papers, unaware I already knew. She said with a bright, practiced excitement, "Dad, someone wants to buy the house. They're offering $850,000, maybe up to $900 if we close quickly. Eric and I think this might be the best way to cover your care. Maple Grove isn't cheap." I bit back a laugh and pretended to be conflicted. Sell the house. But this is where Marilyn and I understand, but you need better care. We'll keep some keepsakes. Let me handle the house. I nodded weakly, letting my eyes look cloudy. In my head, I knew the buyer was Redwood Properties, the company Renee controlled. Everything would be recorded: contracts, deposits, the lot. On December 20th, Lauren texted me a confirmation. "Our team is ready. Ambush on December 25th. When we receive the open the gift signal, we go in." I saved that message under the contact name Delivery Service to avoid suspicion. The closer we got to Christmas, the livelier Vanessa became. She called constantly, laughed a lot, and talked about a fresh start in Florida. I overheard a few calls, including one that made my skin crawl. On January 3rd, he goes into the facility. On the 5th, I file the sale officially. The closing's on December 29th. Everything's smooth. Hard to believe it's this easy. She gave a small, icy laugh, and I realized I didn't feel angry anymore, only certain. On the afternoon of the 22nd, I stepped into the living room and stood beside the planter next to the armchair, the one where, for weeks, I'd quietly poured my coffee. Its leaves were scorched yellow, edges curled, a few brittle ones on the floor. I bent down, picked one up, and crushed it lightly between my fingers. Fine white dust clung to my fingertips. I exhaled. Living evidence. That night, I called Renee. "The police are ready, and I've got the roll down." "You sure?" "I'm sure. This Christmas, she's getting the only gift she deserves." On the morning of the 24th, snow came down thick. The house smelled of gingerbread and faint carols played. Vanessa was busy decorating the tree. Eric and my grandson, Noah, helped with the lights. A perfect family scene, if not for the coffee cup on the table and the phone in my pocket waiting for its cue. I sat in the armchair, quietly watching. Eric smiled at his wife, not knowing that in a few hours his world would collapse. Vanessa turned, voice sugary. "Dad, I made coffee. Have some to warm up." I smiled and took the cup, eyes never leaving her. "Thank you, Vanessa. See? No one makes coffee like me." "Yes," I said lightly, "especially when you really put effort into grinding it." She froze for a beat, then laughed it off. "You're being silly again, Dad." "Maybe," I said, looking at Eric and Noah. "But today I want to tell you two a story about a woman who thought she was smarter than the law." Vanessa stiffened. I reached into my pocket and brushed the phone screen, sending one text. "Open the gift." Outside, snow drifted down. In a few minutes, this house would no longer be quiet. I knew it was about to end, and this time, the truth would open like a Christmas present. Christmas morning. Outside the window, snow fell thick and blinding white. Light bounced off the silent street. A distant car slid over ice. In my house, coffee steamed, and the smell of gingerbread lingered. The tree glowed, but inside me there was only one thing: calm before the storm. Vanessa wore a bright red dress and a glossy pearl necklace. Every move was calculated: the smile, the hair flip, the honeyed tone when she called out, "Dad, I made coffee. Have some to warm up." I smiled, my voice rough. "Thank you, Vanessa. No one makes coffee like me, right?" I stared at her without blinking. "Especially when you really take the time to grind it." She stalled for a second, then covered with a laugh. "You're being silly, Dad. It's Christmas, let's keep it cheerful." I nodded slightly, then looked at Eric and Noah, my son and my grandson, finishing the last ribbon. "Before we open gifts, I want to tell a story. About a woman who thought she could outsmart justice. Vanessa frowned. Dad, this isn't. It's exactly the right time. I set my phone on the table and hit play. Her own voice filled the room, cold and arrogant. Once he's declared incompetent, I'll get the power of attorney. Everything will be legal. Eric froze. Vanessa, that's your voice. Her face went pale. She swallowed. Someone edited that. Edited? I cut in and pulled a USB from my sweater pocket. Then what about this? I played a short video on the laptop. Vanessa in the kitchen, crushing with a spoon, stirring the cup, setting the tray down. The timestamp was clear. 8:49 a.m. December 14th. Eric's hands shook. Oh my God, Vanessa, that's you. She stepped back, voice breaking. No, you don't understand. I was just giving him sleeping meds. He needed rest. Sleeping meds? I pulled a folded paper from my pocket and set it on the table. Dr. Patel's lab results. My blood shows 2.3 milligrams of zolpidem. No Alzheimer's, no cognitive decline. Just sedatives someone gave me every day. The air went solid. Only the clock ticked. I looked at her, voice low but final. You weren't trying to kill me, you were trying to erase me. Turn me into a sluggish, useless, easy-to-control old man. So you could take this house and sell it. I opened the file, her handwritten timeline, the completed POA forms, the Florida condo deposit, spending statements, the chart showing my $3,200 a month being siphoned. Eric held the page, reading line by line, voice tight. This is your handwriting. You were going to put Dad in a facility? Vanessa snapped. You don't get it. I just wanted an easier life. You work forever and we're still broke. I'm not going to die poor like your father. I stood slowly. And I'm not going to die as a puppet. Noah looked at his mother, eyes wide. Mom, did you really put stuff in Grandpa's coffee? Vanessa shouted, Be quiet, Noah. Go to your room. But the boy only stepped back toward me, grabbing my hand, trembling. I squeezed it. It's okay, kiddo. I'm right here. Vanessa lunged to snatch my phone. Give it. You don't have the right. Eric moved between us. Stop, Vanessa. You're taking his side? No, Eric said, eyes wet. I'm protecting my father. She looked around, cornered. I pulled out my phone and typed one line. Open the gift. Less than 2 minutes later, sirens sounded in the distance, then hard knocking at the door. Vanessa backed away, screaming, What did you do? I answered softly, Your Christmas present just arrived. The door opened. Detective Lauren Pike stepped in with 2 officers, coats dusted with snow. Her voice was even and firm. Vanessa Carter, you're under arrest for elder abuse, intentional poisoning, financial fraud, and conspiracy to seize assets. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. Vanessa's mouth fell open. She shook. No, I was taking care of him. They're framing me. Lauren held up a document pouch. We have video, audio, financial evidence, and toxicology, all obtained lawfully. Eric collapsed into a chair, head in his hands. Noah clung to me while Vanessa was restrained, eyes unfocused. 2 officers moved in and cuffed her hands behind her back. The cold click of metal sounded like the end of an 18-month nightmare. Detective Pike didn't waste time. She signaled the forensics team. They quickly photographed each piece of evidence: the pill crusher, the glass jars, the POA papers, the Florida contract, the bank records. Everything was tagged and sealed. Vanessa sobbed, her voice cracking. I have legal paperwork. I have the right. The court will back me. Lauren was calm. No, you don't. Those documents were produced through deception, and under Minnesota law, any POA signed when the victim is manipulated or impaired by drugs is void. She looked at me and nodded slightly. We also verified the Redwood Properties Company you used for the sale. It's legitimate and was set up by Mr. Carter's attorney. That transaction was used to gather fraud evidence, and now it's evidence against you." Vanessa glared at me, desperate. "You set me up?" I smiled lightly. "No. I just let you walk into your own trap." Lauren continued. "The $20,000 Florida condo deposit will be clawed back, and all purchases made with Mr. Carter's accounts will be recovered. You have the right to an attorney, but we have sufficient evidence," Vanessa thrashed. "You can't arrest me like this. I just wanted a better future." "Your future starts at Hennepin County Jail," Lauren said. The officers led her out. She turned back and hissed, "You'll die alone. No one will believe you." I looked straight at her. "You're wrong, Vanessa. I still have faith, and my son has seen the truth." The door closed. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, only the wind hummed under the door and the light gleamed off Eric's tears. I turned to my son. "It's all right, Eric. You were deceived like everyone else." He looked up, eyes red. "Dad, I was so stupid. I believed she truly cared about you." I set a hand on his shoulder and spoke slowly. "Trust is never a sin, son. Sometimes people only learn how to use it wisely after they lose it." Noah stayed by my side, quiet. I bent down and wiped the tears from his cheek. "It's okay, buddy. The truth hurts, but it saves." Lauren returned and handed me a Blythe copy of the report. "We sealed all evidence. Your file goes to the prosecutor tonight. Mr. Carter, you did what few have the courage to do." I gave a small smile. "I just want peace in my own home." When the police cars pulled away, the red and blue lights flickered across the glass, then vanished into the snow. I stood at the window and watched until there was nothing left but darkness and quiet. Eric quietly picked up the coffee cup on the table and poured it down the sink. "I can't believe that all this time, this stuff was killing you slowly," I said softly. "No, Eric, it didn't kill me. It woke me up." We sat in silence. Noah lay his head on my lap and drifted off, exhausted. The house was lit only by the flicker of the fireplace and the soft crackle of wood. I looked up at Marilyn's photo on the wall. In the warm light, her smile seemed gently watchful. "Marilyn," I whispered, "it's done. I'm still here. And this house is still ours." I closed my eyes. That Christmas had no carols and no parties, only a home filled with truth and quiet. For the first time in 18 months, I slept in my own house with no fear, no pills, no lies. Outside, the snow fell softly. Inside, the fire burned, and my last cup of coffee wasn't bitter anymore. On the morning of December 26th, thin sunlight spilled across the deep snow left by the night storm. I brewed myself a black coffee. The first time in months I didn't have to look at it with suspicion. The warmth spread down my throat, the clean bitterness made me smile. Christmas had passed, but the feeling of being alive again was brand new. The phone rang. Attorney Renee Collins called from her downtown Minneapolis office. Her voice, as always, was crisp and to the point. "Sam, the court has approved voiding the test transaction. The house is officially back in your name, and all of Vanessa's frozen accounts are being released for clawback. I don't need to worry about anything else." I was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Is Redwood Properties all wrapped up?" "All wrapped up. But do you want me to transfer the title back to you right away, or hold it a bit longer?" I looked around the room, where Marilyn's photo still sat on the shelf. Morning light fell across her face, gentle and warm. "I want to do something different," I said. "I want to donate this house to the Minnesota Memory Foundation in my wife Marilyn Carter's name. They can turn it into a center for early memory research and dementia prevention." Renee paused, then said softly, "Marilyn would be proud of you." I smiled faintly. She spent her life as a nurse caring for the elderly. I want this place to keep sheltering someone else. That afternoon, Renee sent me a tax analysis. The house was valued at $850,000. The entire property would be transferred to the Research Foundation, with a net charitable value of about $720,000 after deductions, enough to establish the Marilyn Carter Research Fund, supporting projects for early Alzheimer's detection and aid for senior caregivers. Reading that figure eased my heart. A house that had been a battlefield was now becoming a thank you. 3 days later, I moved to Sunset Manor, an independent senior residence on the outskirts of Bloomington. My unit faced a small lake, with a wooden balcony, a rocking chair, and old pines whispering in the wind. In the mornings I walked with other residents. In the afternoons I played cards with a few new friends. They laughed loudly and talked big, but everyone carried a quiet sadness behind the eyes. I realized I wasn't alone, I'd just been silent too long. The evening I signed the transfer papers, Renee brought the file to me. We sat in my new dining room under warm yellow light. When she set the last stack in front of me, I took Marilyn's framed photo from my bag and set it neatly on the table. "I'm signing for both of us," I said. "If she were here, she'd do the same." After Renee left, I sat still for a while. Snow drifted outside. The room was small and simple, but calm and clean. I laid my hand on the frame and whispered, "We got the house back, and now it's time to give it away. Because memories, Marilyn, don't live in brick walls, they live in the people who are helped." Late that night, Dr. Patel called. Her voice was low, full of feeling. "Mr. Carter, the prosecutor has the file, but they need an additional forensic report to strengthen the toxicology evidence. I've sent a draft by email. I just need your final statement confirmed." "I'll do it first thing in the morning," I said. "And thank you not just for saving me, but for believing me." "No, Sam. You saved yourself. I only handed you a map. After the call, I opened my laptop and wrote a letter to all my former neighbors. Short, without blame and without excuses. Thank you to those who didn't judge when I lost my way in my own home. If you heard false rumors, please forget them. I'm okay, and I'm grateful. Take care of one another. None of us knows when we'll be the one who needs to be believed." I printed the letters, sealed the envelopes, and mailed them the next morning. Eric helped me pack for the last 2 days. He said little, but his eyes were heavy with regret. While boxing up some books, he murmured, "I don't know how to make this right." I put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to make it right, just live better. You trusted the person you loved. That isn't wrong. The trust was just placed in the wrong hands." He nodded, eyes wet. "I'm afraid my son will hate his mother. Time will teach him the difference between a wrong person and a wrong act," I said. "He needs both his father and his grandfather to understand that." Toward evening, I wrapped Marilyn's old winter coat, the one she wore every Christmas season. I didn't take it with me. I boxed it and sent it with the donation paperwork to the foundation. On the last line I wrote, "This is the coat a nurse once wore while guiding patients through snowy nights. May it keep someone else warm." On my last night in the old house, I sat before the fireplace and wrote a simple line in my small notebook. The day I took back my voice. Not a voice against someone, but a voice to reclaim truth, dignity, and memory. I used to fear old age meant silence. Turns out, only when we dare to speak do we truly live. On January 2nd, I got a message from Renee. Vanessa's initial detention hearing would be next week. I felt no hatred, only a desire to see her face what she'd done without pills, without pretending, without performing. That morning, I opened the balcony door. Sunlight hit a thin sheet of ice, scattering into 1,000 tiny mirrors. I breathed in the scent of pine and fresh snow. Marilyn used to say, "One day you'll understand that letting go is also a way to love." Now I truly do. The old house belongs to people who need it more than I do. As for me, I need only this: a small apartment, a hot cup of coffee, and a quiet not poisoned by lies. At the window, the last light of day faded. I set down my pen and closed the notebook. Tomorrow, I'll go to court. But tonight, I just want to whisper one simple line, like a New Year's blessing to myself. I survived, and our memories at last are back where they belong. The first day of court was biting cold. I wore a thick sweater and took a seat in the back row, away from the press cameras. The courtroom was small, the air heavy. Across the aisle, Vanessa sat with her head down, face pale, no trace of makeup. The cuffs were off, but the red marks on her wrists remained a reminder of the months she tried to bind others with lies. The prosecutor presented the case, each piece of evidence arranged like a diary of the truth. On the big screen, the kitchen video played clear as day. Vanessa crushed a white pill, stirred it into a cup, and the light flashed off a steel spoon. A soft click, and she turned back with a gentle, practiced smile. The audio rolled, each word slicing the air. Once he's declared incompetent, the house is ours. Everything's legal. Then came Dr. Patel's toxicology results, the bank statements, the timeline in Vanessa's handwriting, all forming what the prosecutor called a steel wall of an undeniable file. The defense tried to claim post-trauma mental distress, said Vanessa, was overwhelmed by caregiving and meant no harm, but whenever they said care, the prosecutor played a clip of her laughing and saying, "Once he's in the facility, we sell the house and move to Florida." The courtroom went silent. When the judge set bail at $50,000, Vanessa merely shook her head. No more money, no more house, no one left to help. She bowed her face and her shoulders trembled. I didn't feel anger, only a deep sadness. Maybe the harshest punishment isn't the sentence, but the moment she realized she'd lost everything. The hearing ended. Detective Lauren Pike shook my hand in the hallway. "Mr. Carter, the Florida Condo Company confirmed cooperation. They'll return the full deposit." I smiled. "Thank you, but I don't need it back." Lauren frowned slightly. "What do you want to do with it?" "I'll donate it to the department's elder abuse prevention program. Using tainted money to stop others from being hurt, that's the gentlest revenge." Lauren nodded, with a faint, sad smile. "The world needs more people like you." 3 weeks later, Eric filed for divorce. The court moved quickly. The evidence was clear. He received full custody of Noah, and Vanessa would have only limited visitation after serving her sentence. I didn't feel joy, only relief. A string of knots had been untied with tears. Once the paperwork was done, I fully settled into Sunset Manor. It was a late winter afternoon, the sun breaking through after days of heavy snow. In my small new apartment, I hung Marilyn's photo where the morning light would hit it. That night, for the first time, I sat with other residents in the common room. One silver-haired man invited me to play poker. Another shared a story about the wife he'd lost back in the 80s. When it was my turn, I talked about Marilyn, about the woman who kept me alive even after she was gone. People listened quietly. Some smiled, some wiped their eyes. I realized every wrinkle at that table was a story of loss and survival. On the first Sunday Noah came to visit. He brought an old book, Charlotte's Web, and said, "Grandpa, Mom used to read this to me. Will you read it now?" I nodded, my voice unsteady. We sat in the armchair as I read line by line, Noah leaning in to listen. Afternoon sun slipped through the curtains and lit up his blonde hair. I suddenly remembered Eric 40 years ago sitting on my lap as Marilyn read those first pages. Time moves in circles, closing one to open another. One morning in early February, I received a letter from the Minnesota Memory Foundation. They officially launched the Marilyn Carter Grant, funding research on early dementia detection for older women at 3 major hospitals. The letter, with its purple logo, bore a line at the bottom. "With gratitude to Samuel Carter, who turned loss into human kindness." I reread it, eyes blurring. The house that once hosted deceit was now fueling knowledge and trust. I also began speaking at elder protection events. Not to retell my tragedy, but to tell people who are afraid that truth has power. I told them, When someone tries to silence you, remember your voice is the strongest evidence. Speak, tell it, even if you tremble. After each talk, I felt a little lighter, not because I was comforted, but because I knew I was returning memory to the community, to people who thought their voices were gone, as I once did. Sometimes, at night, I stood before the mirror. White hair, dry eyes, lined cheeks, but in that reflection, I saw something else. A small, steady glint, like a last candle in a cold room. Not the light of victory, but the light of truth. I didn't defeat anyone. I simply reclaimed myself, and sometimes that's enough. In March, snow melted slowly off the roofs, exposing the first brown blades of grass. I sat in the courtroom with a hot coffee, heartbeat as calm as the ticking wall clock. 3 months had passed since that fateful Christmas night, and today, justice would speak for itself. Vanessa stood at the bar. The once sleek hair was dull. Her face looked ashen. Her eyes avoided every gaze. Her attorney informed the judge she would plead guilty to avoid a lengthy trial, 4 years in prison, restitution, and a permanent no-contact order with me and my family. When the sentence was read, I felt no triumph, only heavy quiet, like a prison door closing behind her. I once thought I'd want an apology, but now I know. Some apologies have no value when they arrive too late. The judge's remarks. This was particularly cruel conduct, prolonged poisoning, fabricated evidence, and a scheme to seize a relative's assets. The defendant attempted to render the victim incapacitated for profit, showing calculated coldness and inhumanity. I looked down at my hands, veins raised. I'm 70 years old. I don't have the old house, or Marilyn's armchair, but I have another kind of home. People who believed me, who heard my story, and others like me learning to stand again. Eric sat beside me, gripping my hand. I could hear him exhale, lighter than ever. The divorce was final. He had custody of Noah. Father and son were learning to live again, to love without fearing betrayal. Noah smiled more now, back in school, carrying a backpack with a small photo of his mom and Grandma Marilyn side by side, 2 halves of an imperfect memory that was still warm. One April morning, I got an email from the Minnesota Memory Foundation. The donation in Marilyn's name had launched a pilot project at 3 major hospitals, providing early memory screening tools to more than 600 patients. My eyes stung as I read. The house once stalked by lies was helping others find the light of truth. Marilyn always believed this. Every memory preserved saves a life. I started writing again. My first piece for Senior Voices was titled, "When Your Voice is Stolen, Take It Back with the Truth." I didn't write to complain, I wrote to prove that old age doesn't equal helplessness. Everyone has the right to stand up, to be trusted, and to be heard. In it, I wrote, "The sweetest revenge isn't in the sentence, it's in how you live. Keep walking, keep telling the truth, and let the law do the rest. That is the victory." That evening, I set Marilyn's photo on the windowsill at Sunset Manor. Outside, a light snow drifted. Sunset washed the old pines in orange. I looked at her picture and said quietly, "We kept the memories, honey, and because of them, I'm still here." I sat still for a while, then switched on the small lamp. The page before me read, "The last day of one chapter and the start of another." Thank you for staying with me to the very end, the story of an old man, thought forgotten, who still found his way back to the truth. If you're watching from New York, California, Florida, or anywhere in the world, I want to hear from you. Have you ever seen an older person be abused, manipulated, or stripped of their voice? Please share in the comments. Your story might be the one that pulls someone else out of the dark. And if you want to keep traveling with me through real stories of courage, justice, and memory, please hit subscribe and like. Every comment and view is a small light that brightens this path. I'm grateful for that more than any reward. Justice was done, memory was preserved, and we go on living.